When the government identifies a moment of crisis,
for decades, companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon have made vast sums monetizing the personal information of their users with almost no oversight or regulation.
they use that crisis for an exceptional demand for exceptional power.
But public attitudes about their size and power and their ability or willingness to police themselves are being called into question.
But it's always justified as, an exception to ordinary operations, something that's done for a narrow purpose in a narrow way, but then nobody objects to it. These all happen in secret, remember. They keep the body of witnesses small by design to limit the amount of dissent that can occur internally, organizationally. And those who do complain are generally shuffled off the program. They're put in a closet somewhere, and they ride out their days to retirement if they're lucky, never doing anything that matters again, but also not having access to anything that could cause problems for those who are violating people's rights or our laws.
Imagine with me. Imagine your every email, every search query, every conversation with a loved one permanently stored and accessible to a powerful entity you cannot see or control. It's no longer the plot of a dystopian novel, our modern, hyper-connected reality. The very concept of privacy seems archaic as we trade away details of our lives for personalized ads and tailored services. Yet there's a nagging question we must answer. Is privacy a luxury we can no longer afford, or is it a cornerstone of a free society that we surrender at our peril? In the digital age, governments and corporations have extraordinary tools to peer into our lives. Do we accept the argument that to be protected, we must be constantly monitored, or are the risks to our essential freedoms simply too great? We must first understand what Edward Snowden revealed. So let's now examine the very nature and breathtaking scope of these government surveillance programs. The shockwaves from Edward Snowden's revelations still reverberate today. They exposed a complex web of government surveillance programs with the capability to collect a staggering amount of data, not just on suspected criminals, but on everyday citizens like you and me. Imagine your phone calls, your internet browsing history, even the heartfelt emails you send to loved ones, all potentially captured in this vast digital net. The sheer scale of this intrusion is enough to make anyone feel vulnerable. But the reach of this surveillance extended far beyond the walls of government agencies. Collaborations with major tech companies and telecom providers turned our daily online interactions into a goldmine of information. Every click, every search term, even the seemingly insignificant details like your location, these became data points, breadcrumbs leading to a surprisingly detailed picture of who you are and what you do online.
You have the right to stay private and protect your personal data. Your personal data is being sold online by data brokers right now. If you don't have the time to go through each and every website that may or may not have any information on you, then try Delete Me. Delete Me will take care of removing your data from public databases and people's search sites. To do what we did to remove our data and get your personal information removed from the internet, go to joindeleteme.com/anonymous. We value privacy as we know how our personal data can be used against us. That's why we recommend Delete Me. Delete Me is giving 20% off to anyone who uses the code ANONYMOUS. Again, that's joindeleteme.com/anonymous. It's like having your own personal privacy assistant who takes care of all the hard work for you and protects your data.
The very foundation of our digital lives became a potential source of information for these programs, allowing them to paint a chillingly accurate portrait of our habits, beliefs, and even our social circles. What truly amplifies the unsettling nature of this surveillance is the technical infrastructure behind it. Imagine vast data centers, fortresses of digital information, humming with activity. Their purpose isn't to protect us, but to store the unimaginable quantities of data collected about ordinary citizens. Complex algorithms relentlessly analyze this data, searching not just for specific keywords, but for patterns, connections, and any anomalies that might be deemed suspicious. The sheer volume of information collected, coupled with the sophisticated analysis tools employed, paints a picture of a world where our every digital move is potentially scrutinized. Proponents of such programs often justify this level of intrusion by invoking the specter of security. They argue that constant monitoring is a vital tool in a dangerous world, a necessary measure to prevent terrorism and catch criminals before they strike. They paint a picture of shadowy figures lurking online, plotting acts of violence that only constant vigilance can thwart. It's a seductive argument, appealing to our most basic desire for safety. But is this a binary choice? Absolute security or unfettered privacy? Is there a way to navigate this complex landscape, to ensure our safety without sacrificing the very freedoms that make our society worth protecting? These are the critical questions we must grapple with as we move forward. Privacy. It's a concept as old as human society itself. The right to a space, whether physical or mental, where we are free from prying eyes and unsolicited judgment. The power to close the door, to whisper a secret, to explore our thoughts without fear they'll be dissected and analyzed by unseen forces. But does privacy as we've long understood it even exist in this digital age? We've traded the privacy of locked diaries and unrecorded conversations for the boundless connectivity of the internet. It's a trade that offers extraordinary benefits, but also insidious risks. Think of your online activities, the websites you visit, the articles you read, the posts you share, even the things you might search for in a moment of desperate curiosity. This leaves traces everywhere, a digital footprint that paints a surprisingly accurate picture of who you are, what you believe, and what interests you. But if this data feels harmless, just fragments of your online activity, let's reframe it. Imagine this data analyzed, cross-referenced, and interpreted by powerful algorithms with the intent to understand and perhaps even predict your behavior. Imagine that this information falls into the wrong hands, a foreign government, a criminal syndicate, or a corporation seeking to profit from influencing your decisions. The erosion of privacy in the digital age has profound consequences. When we believe we're constantly under observation, it changes our behavior subtly, yet profoundly. We begin to self-censor, to hesitate before voicing controversial opinions or visiting websites that might raise an unseen eyebrow. It creates a climate of fear and conformity, where the freedom to explore new ideas, to challenge the status quo, slowly erodes. But perhaps, some might argue, a small sacrifice of privacy is a necessary price for living in the interconnected world. They insist that this data, in the right hands, could be vital for maintaining order or even preventing crime. It's a tempting bargain, to sacrifice a bit of privacy for the illusion of safety. But is this illusion worth the cost? The risk isn't just about governments or corporations prying into our private moments. It's about what we surrender within ourselves when we accept constant surveillance as the norm. It's a chilling precedent, a gradual acceptance that privacy is a negotiable right, a relic of a bygone era irrelevant in the face of modern technology. This brings us to one of the oldest questions in any democratic society: how to maintain a balance between security and freedom, especially when these two ideals seem to stand in opposition. Can we have both, or will we ultimately have to choose? The debate surrounding security and freedom in the digital age is a complex dance with no easy steps. On one hand, the specter of terrorism and online threats looms large, fueling arguments for increased surveillance. But on the other, we must be wary of sacrificing the very freedoms that make our societies strong. History teaches us that unchecked power, even wielded with noble intentions, can morph into a tool of oppression. Without strong safeguards and rigorous oversight, the technologies designed to protect us can become instruments to control us. So the question remains, where do we draw the line? Can we find a balance in this digital world, one that ensures our safety without eroding our essential liberties? The answer, perhaps, lies in a renewed conversation, a recognition that this is a debate that demands ongoing participation from all of us. We, the citizens, must hold our governments accountable, demanding transparency and ensuring that any surveillance programs implemented are subject to strict oversight. We must also push tech companies to prioritize our privacy, developing and deploying technologies that empower us to control our own data. The fallout from Edward Snowden's revelations continues. Legal challenges play out in courtrooms, legislative battles rage on Capitol Hill, and the conversation about privacy and security shows no signs of abating. The path forward is not an easy one. It demands a difficult and ongoing conversation, a careful consideration of the trade-offs we're willing to make, and a constant vigilance to safeguard our freedoms in the digital realm. What does this future look like? Can we devise systems and technologies that offer security without compromising the fundamental liberties that make life worth living? The impact of Edward Snowden's actions ripples through the years, shaping legal battles, igniting public discourse, and forever altering our understanding of government surveillance. His act of defiance sparked a global conversation, one that's far from over. It forced us to confront difficult truths about the balance between privacy, freedom, and security in the 21st century. The immediate aftermath of the leaks saw governments scrambling to justify their actions, tech companies facing user distrust, and international relations strained. This was followed by a wave of legal challenges and policy changes. Some programs were scaled back, others modified, and a greater focus was placed on transparency and oversight. While these changes were significant, the debate about the appropriate limits of government surveillance continues to rage. But it's not just legal battles and policy debates. The true impact goes deeper. There's a newfound cynicism permeating our relationship with technology. Once seen as tools of liberation and connection, the devices and platforms that permeate our lives are now viewed with a mix of unease and resignation when it comes to our privacy. Edward Snowden's fate, living in exile, is a stark reminder of the risks whistleblowers face. It raises a thorny ethical question. Does the public good and a need for systemic change justify the sacrifices whistleblowers often make? However, in the aftermath, a powerful force has been unleashed, an awakened citizenry. The Snowden revelations sparked a broader awareness of the risks to privacy in the digital age. Privacy advocates, once niche voices, are now leading movements, educating the public, and demanding stronger legal protections for our digital lives. These advocates aren't just focused on government overreach. They recognize that corporations also hold extraordinary power over our data. The push for privacy-conscious businesses, those that prioritize user agency and control, is growing in momentum. The fight for privacy and security in the digital realm is an evolutionary one, where threats evolve, technologies change, and the very notion of privacy adapts with the times. What's clear is that complacency or surrendering to a sense of inevitability is not an option. We owe it to ourselves to imagine a future where we reap the benefits of a hyper-connected world without sacrificing our fundamental rights. This future might demand that we re-examine our relationship with data and technology. Is there a path forward where we retain more control over our information? Can transparency and informed consent be made cornerstones in the world of big data? Can we envision a digital society where our freedoms are enshrined not just in laws, but in the very architecture of the technology we use? Can we harness the vast forces shaping our world, the technologies of surveillance, connection, and data control, and shape them in a way that preserves our essential liberties and freedoms in the digital age? This is a question we must all grapple with as citizens, consumers, technologists, and lawmakers. The answers we find today will determine not only the digital world we inhabit, but the legacy we leave to future generations.
We do not live in a perfect world. We do not have the benefit of a perfect market. There are monopolies that exist. There are companies that exploit flaws in regulations and the moats that have been granted to them. And it's hard to find a better example of this than a lot of the internet giants as they exist today.